March 1944, near Enid, Oklahoma, at a United States Army Air Forces training field. A military police guard stationed at the outer perimeter watches a work detail of German prisoners move in a straight line along the service road that runs parallel to the flight apron. The men wear standard-issue POW clothing. Their pace is regulated by the guard walking several meters behind them. The distance between the prisoners and the aircraft parking area is measured and deliberate. The route has been cleared of equipment. The prisoners are not permitted to stop. One of the men walks with a posture that draws no immediate attention. His head remains lowered. His hands remain visible. His stride matches the rhythm of the others. He does not turn toward the aircraft. He does not pause near the hangars. He appears to follow the instructions he has been given. The guard notes nothing unusual at first. The work detail has passed this route before. The aircraft remains stationary. Ground crews continue their tasks without interruption. The noise of engine testing carries across the field and disperses into the open landscape beyond the perimeter fence. The prisoner assigned to the second position in the line records the same scene in a different way. He does not look directly at the aircraft, but he tracks their movement through peripheral vision. He observes the timing of the ground crew's routines. He notes how long the apron remains unoccupied between servicing rotations. He registers the intervals at which the perimeter patrol passes the gate near the service road. The aircraft stationed closest to the route are North American AT-6 Texan training planes, single-engine aircraft used for advanced pilot instruction. Their canopies are closed, their wheels are chalked, fuel lines are detached. The aircraft are aligned in rows, facing the same direction, prepared for the next sequence of training flights. The prisoner has no direct access to the aircraft. He has no tools. He has no clearance to approach the apron. He is permitted to move only along the assigned route under armed supervision. His work detail involves maintenance of storage sheds and removal of debris from non-operational areas of the base. The prisoner has been held in the United States since late 1943. He was captured during fighting in North Africa earlier that year. After transfer through holding camps in the Mediterranean region, he was transported across the Atlantic with other German prisoners and assigned to a POW camp in Oklahoma. From there, he was attached to labor details that supported agricultural work and base maintenance. The camp operates under U.S. Army regulations governing the treatment and employment of prisoners of war. The prisoners receive food rations consistent with U.S. Army standards. They are housed in barracks constructed to military specifications. Their movement outside the camp is regulated by guard units assigned to each work detail. The prisoner's exposure to the airfield is limited. He does not work on the flight line. He is not permitted to handle aircraft equipment. His proximity to flight operations is incidental to the location of the work sites assigned to his detail. Despite these restrictions, repeated exposure to the routines of the base allows patterns to become visible. He notes the sequence of the morning schedule. He observes when the first group of cadets arrives for instruction. He observes when the ground crews break for meals. He notes the reduction in personnel during shift changes. He notes the intervals when sections of the apron are temporarily unoccupied. The guard responsible for the detail has served on similar assignments for several months. He follows established procedures. He maintains spacing between prisoners. He counts the men before departure and upon return. He does not permit deviation from the assigned route. His attention is directed toward maintaining order rather than observing individual behavior. Within the constraints of this routine, the prisoner begins to form an outline of an escape attempt. The outline is not based on access to weapons or assistance from outside the camp. It is based on proximity to aircraft and the possibility of reaching one during a brief window when supervision is reduced. The plan does not rely on prior flight training on American aircraft. The prisoner has no such training. His military service did not include aviation instruction. His understanding of aircraft operations is limited to general concepts acquired before the war. The plan assumes that basic engine controls can be identified through observation and that an aircraft can be started without specialized equipment. These assumptions are incorrect. The prisoner does not possess knowledge of American aircraft ignition systems. He does not know the procedures for releasing wheel chocks. He does not understand the sequencing required for engine warm-up. He does not have access to navigation charts or radio frequencies. He does not have a defined destination beyond leaving the base perimeter. The plan develops in isolation. There is no evidence of coordination with other prisoners. There is no external support. The outline remains limited to observation and internal rehearsal. The prisoner does not attempt to communicate his plan to others. He does not attempt to obtain tools or equipment. The environment in which the plan develops is defined by constraints. The base is secured by perimeter fencing. Access points are controlled by armed personnel. Observation towers are positioned to monitor movement along service roads and near the apron. Unauthorized entry into operational areas is subject to immediate detention. By early March 1944, base security officers receive reports of prisoners lingering at the edges of their assigned routes. The behavior does not involve overt violations. It consists of minor deviations in pace and repeated positioning near the same segments of the service road. The reports prompt a review of prisoner movement patterns near the airfield. The response is administrative rather than punitive. Work routes are adjusted to increase distance from operational zones. Guard spacing is reduced to limit individual movement within the detail. Prisoners assigned to tasks near the airfield are rotated to agricultural labor sites farther from base infrastructure. The prisoner associated with the observation pattern is reassigned to a different labor detail. The reassignment removes him from proximity to the flight apron. The plan does not progress beyond preliminary observation. No attempt is made to cross the perimeter. No aircraft is approached. No equipment is tampered with. The reassignment ends the immediate risk associated with the plan. The base does not record the incident as an attempted escape involving aircraft theft. It is documented as a security review prompted by irregular movement patterns among POW labor details. This episode occurs within a broader context of POW administration in the United States during World War II. More than 400,000 German prisoners are held in camps across the country by 1944. Labor detachments support agricultural production, infrastructure maintenance, and non-sensitive military operations. Security protocols are designed to prevent escape and protect military assets. Escape attempts occur throughout the POW system. Most involve prisoners leaving work details on foot or concealing themselves in vehicles. Attempts that involve proximity to airfields are rare. None result in the theft of operational aircraft. The distance from neutral territory and the absence of logistical support make sustained escape from the continental United States impractical. By mid-1944, U.S. Army policy limits prisoner exposure to operational military infrastructure. Camps revise labor assignments to avoid proximity to airfields, depots, and communications centers. These changes reflect the cumulative effect of minor incidents and potential vulnerabilities identified through routine security reviews. The plan to reach an aircraft never moves beyond preparation. It remains an example of how proximity to sensitive infrastructure, even under controlled conditions, creates security concerns that require administrative response. The episode does not alter the broader course of POW policy, but it contributes to incremental changes in how labor detachments are managed near operational facilities. April 1944. At a prisoner of war camp in north-central Oklahoma, administrative changes introduced weeks earlier begin to alter daily routines for German prisoners assigned to labor details near military installations. The reassignment of personnel away from operational airfields reduces prisoner exposure to sensitive areas, but it does not eliminate escape attempts. Instead, it shifts the methods and locations where such attempts occur. Prisoners reassigned to agricultural labor detachments are transported to farms and processing facilities across several counties. These sites are located at varying distances from rail lines, roads, and small towns. Supervision is maintained by rotating guard units, whose staffing levels depend on availability and local security assessments. The structure of the POW labor program is standardized across camps. Prisoners are assigned in groups. Each group is supervised by one or more guards. Movement schedules are logged. Return counts are verified. These procedures are designed to minimize unauthorized movement, but the geographic dispersion of labor sites introduces variables that are more difficult to control. Within this system, German POWs continue to evaluate opportunities for escape. The majority of prisoners do not attempt to leave custody. Many have assessed the distance to neutral territory and the absence of external support and conclude that escape is unlikely to succeed. Others test the limits of supervision through short-term absences, concealment during transport, or attempts to move beyond assigned work zones. The prisoner reassigned from the airfield detail is transferred to an agricultural site approximately 20 miles from the camp. The work involves maintenance of irrigation channels and storage facilities. The site is bordered by open land and intersected by unpaved roads used by farm vehicles. Guard coverage is reduced compared to the airfield assignment, reflecting the lower security classification of the location. The change in assignment alters the operational context of any escape planning. The absence of aircraft removes the possibility of rapid departure from the region. Movement on foot becomes the only feasible option. The prisoner assesses the surrounding area in terms of distance to rail lines, availability of shelter, and the likelihood of obtaining civilian clothing. None of these factors favor sustained evasion. Records from the period indicate that most German POW escape attempts in the United States involved leaving labor detachments and attempting to travel by foot or by rail. These attempts rarely extended beyond several days. Prisoners were often recaptured by local law enforcement or military police after seeking food, shelter, or transportation. Language barriers and unfamiliarity with local geography limited their ability to avoid detection. In several documented cases, escaped prisoners were apprehended after approaching civilian homes for assistance. In others, they were detained while attempting to board trains without proper identification. The lack of currency, food supplies, and knowledge of travel routes significantly constrained movement. Administrative responses to these incidents focused on procedural adjustments rather than punitive measures. Camps revised guard assignments, increased headcounts during transport, and adjusted labor routes to reduce proximity to transportation hubs. The objective was to reduce opportunity rather than impose additional penalties on prisoners, in accordance with U.S. adherence to the Geneva Convention governing the treatment of POWs. At the Oklahoma camp authorities introduced additional rotation of labor assignments to prevent prisoners from developing detailed familiarity with specific locations. Work details were shifted between agricultural sites on a weekly basis. Guards were instructed to vary transport routes and departure times to reduce predictability. These measures were not uniform across all camps. Implementation depended on local command discretion and available resources. In some regions, staffing shortages limited the extent to which procedures could be modified. In others, proximity to sensitive infrastructure prompted stricter controls. The broader administrative framework for POW management in the United States emphasized compliance with international law, maintenance of security, and utilization of prisoner labor in non-sensitive roles. Escape attempts were treated as security incidents rather than criminal acts. Recaptured prisoners were returned to custody and in some cases reassigned to different labor details. Formal punishment was limited and subject to review under military regulations. The cumulative effect of these policies was a system in which escape attempts were anticipated and managed as routine contingencies. Plans that involved high-risk objectives, including access to aircraft or other military assets, were addressed through reassignment and procedural changes rather than escalation of force. By mid-1944, the emphasis on restricting prisoner proximity to airfields had become standard practice across many U.S. Army Air Forces installations. Labor details were redirected toward agricultural production and infrastructure maintenance away from operational zones. The objective was to eliminate even the theoretical possibility of interference with aircraft operations. The prisoner whose planning centered on reaching an aircraft remains in custody. There is no record of further attempts involving aviation-related targets. His reassignment reduces exposure to sensitive infrastructure and aligns his activities with the revised security posture of the camp. May 1944. The administrative changes implemented across prisoner of war camps in the central United States begin to produce measurable shifts in daily operations and security oversight. Camp commandants receive updated guidance on the placement of labor detachments near military infrastructure. Facilities associated with aircraft operations, fuel storage, communications, and munitions handling are designated as restricted environments for POW labor. Requests for prisoner labor at these sites require additional approval and are subject to periodic review by regional commands. The Oklahoma camp adjusts its labor allocation accordingly. Prisoners are reassigned to agricultural production, road maintenance, and warehouse operations associated with civilian supply chains. These assignments are distributed across multiple counties to meet local labor shortages created by wartime mobilization. Transport schedules are formalized, and guard-to-prisoner ratios are increased for details operating near transportation corridors. Records from the period indicate that German POW escape attempts continue to occur, but the frequency declines as administrative controls tighten. Most incidents involve short-term absences from work details, rather than sustained efforts to reach distant locations. The logistical limitations faced by escapees remain consistent. Prisoners lack maps, currency, civilian clothing, and reliable sources of food. Communication with the civilian population is constrained by language barriers and by public awareness campaigns instructing residents to report unfamiliar individuals. Local law enforcement agencies coordinate with military police units assigned to POW camps. Procedures for reporting suspected escapees are standardized. Descriptions of missing prisoners are transmitted to county sheriffs and state authorities. Road checkpoints are established in response to confirmed absences. These measures reduce the duration of most escape attempts. The prisoner whose earlier planning involved proximity to an airfield remains assigned to agricultural labor. His movement is regulated by the same procedures applied to other prisoners in the detachment. There is no record of renewed planning involving military infrastructure. His daily routine consists of transport to work sites, supervised labor, and return to the camp at scheduled intervals. The administrative handling of his case reflects a broader policy approach. Prisoners who displayed behavior interpreted as potential security risks were not subjected to punitive isolation unless specific violations occurred. Instead, they were reassigned to environments considered less sensitive. The objective was to reduce opportunity rather than impose disciplinary measures. Within the POW population, informal assessments of escape viability continue to circulate. Prisoners exchange information about the outcomes of previous attempts, including the rapid recapture of escapees and the absence of external support networks. These observations contribute to a general understanding that sustained evasion within the continental United States is impractical. Some prisoners attempt to obtain civilian clothing or tools through unauthorized exchanges with local workers. These efforts are limited by supervision and by regulations governing interaction with civilians. Instances of contraband acquisition are documented and addressed through confiscation and reassignment of personnel rather than criminal prosecution. The U.S. Army's approach to POW management during this period reflects an emphasis on administrative control and compliance with international law. The Geneva Convention provisions governing prisoner treatment are incorporated into camp regulations. Food rations, medical care, and housing standards are maintained at levels comparable to those provided to U.S. troops. Labor assignments are structured to avoid direct involvement in combat-related activities. Security policy continues to evolve in response to identified vulnerabilities. Camps conduct periodic reviews of labor routes, transport schedules, and guard deployment. Facilities near rail lines and highways receive additional attention due to their potential role in facilitating unauthorized movement. Adjustments are documented in internal memoranda and operational directives. By the end of May 1944, the cumulative effect of these measures is a reduction in both the frequency and duration of escape attempts across the region. The earlier concern regarding proximity of POW labor to airfields has been addressed through reassignment and procedural modification. No incidents involving aircraft access are recorded during this period. The episode that began with observation near an airfield concludes without escalation. It remains one of several minor security concerns identified and resolved through administrative action. The response illustrates how POW camp management in the United States relied on routine procedural adjustments to address potential risks, without altering the broader framework of prisoner treatment. This episode is based on documented wartime records and established research into prisoner of war administration in the United States. Individual experiences varied, but the policies that shaped these outcomes were consistent across camps and regions. WW2 Studio publishes research-based examinations of lesser-known aspects of the Second World War, including captivity, intelligence operations, logistics, and military administration. If you find this work valuable, you can support the channel by subscribing. Comments and source suggestions are reviewed and used to guide future episodes.